high quality literature in many of the different campaigns that we run, yet we try and reinvent the wheel in many cases. Connecting with students, a proper USI website. How difficult can that be? It should be a number of weeks, something in which, again, students want to go on and find out a bit more about the union that an awful lot of them don't know they're members of. Secondly, they don't know that they're paying for. It's all about having a clear message to communicate, but we don't have that yet because we haven't connected with our students. We haven't effectively got the view from the grassroots in a very, very long time. That is our number one step. The rest is clearly laid out. To hide behind the cloak of it being vague is just trying to deflect the attention from the failure of previous year's campaigns.
Okay, we started this discussion talking about the difficulties if a graduate tax option wasn't accepted. Address us somewhat on your views in relation to the policy that should be put in place by USI. What would you be advocating, Ciarán?
Sure. Throughout the campaign, I've been advocating a graduate tax on the basis that the fundamentals of higher education are, first of all, quality. Otherwise, it's a waste of our lives, a waste of 3, 4, 5 years if we're sitting there getting something which is not internationally acceptable as a standard, which is not going to ensure that we can gain employment or that we can go on to live the lives that we hope to attain. So quality is essential. Investment is a central part of equality. Currently, we invest a lot of money, but not enough. We need to ensure that we drive for efficiency within the sector. That work has to continue, and I think that the government have to play a much bolder role in that. But also, we have to acknowledge that, yes, if we benefit from education, the same as if we benefit from any other service, we should pay, and I believe that a graduate tax is a fair way of apportioning that responsibility.
Same point to you, John?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I agree with everything he said, and I can't fault a word he said. And I'll say why I'm for the graduate tax by arguing why I'm not for free fees anymore. If you look at the free fee scheme that it was introduced in 95, 96, what that really enabled was wealthy families to send their children to private secondary schools, which in turn decreased the efficiency and decency of our own publicly funded secondary schools. So what we're doing by trying to harp back to free fees is screwing people before they even get to third level. So we need funding somewhere. So my issue is, are we going to go for full fees, which I completely disagree with, a student loan, which I disagree with, or the graduate tax that needs to have serious creaks ironed out of it? But that is the best possibility for us to, as Ciarán said, get a quality of access and quality of education. Because education should be what you know and not how deep your pocket goes. And there's no point in all of us being in education if we have no hope for a job afterwards. And that is the main criteria we have to judge this on. So on that, I am for a graduate tax.
Okay, that's the debate to be continued another day. Leaving student finance issues aside, what would be your next, what would you consider to be your next most important policy area? We'll start with John.
Well, I think I know we're talking about funding in terms of what fees we pay, but I think the grant's a major issue.
With respect, John, I think that's included in student finance.
Oh, you want to talk about
away from student finance.
Okay. Well, I mean, and this is not me shying away from the answer because I'm anything but I am truthful even when it pains me. But I think that there are so many issues next year. The one thing we do need to get right, and I will say this time and time and time again, is the way we campaign. Because it is the way that we campaign that gets all our issues, whether it's equality or welfare or education or whatever. It's how we get things done. So I want to involve us in the political process. I want us to get effective lobbying training, effective media training, so you can stand up and go against any radio presenter or any TV presenter and argue your case for education and for students. That's the only way we're going to get it done. So I think the main issue next year is how we campaign, because everything else follows that. So I think that's the major issue, sorting out our campaigning strategy.
Yeah, to be fair, I don't think that's actually a policy, John. That's covered by everything you've said before. Ciarán, what do you have as a second objective beyond student finance?
Sure. I think nationally, students and the student movement is perceived as being very narrow. I think that needs to be changed. By that, I don't mean that we need to be occupying banks or taking holidays outside them for a long period of time. But I do believe that we need to ensure that students are actively engaged in other parts of society, such as working with charities, and we should be directing education policy that facilitates that. So saying to the HEA, there is a huge benefit in having such a young cohort of active citizens engaged in higher education. Why not ensure that there's a module in some way linked to community service across the spectrum, across every course in the country, so that whether you're doing engineering or medicine, you are in some way contributing back to society. Equivalent, perhaps, to what has been suggested in terms of transition year students helping out the elderly. This is something that could apply across society and would be hugely benefit from an image point of view for the student movement, but from a long-term point of view for society at large.
Okay, so Kieran favours active citizenship as a second campaign. You've already indicated what you want is campaigns run well, which should be a sine qua non to start with. So what would be your second campaign?
Yeah, well, I think a major issue next year is going to be the technological university issue and the acquiring of that status. It's no secret that we may be several years away from our first technological university, but the work has to begin now in getting unions ready for that. I've already been talking to the National Union of Students in Australia and the UK in relation to student union amalgamations. The Australian model has already done it with Victoria University Students' Union, and I have got the blueprint there. So on the 1st of July, in terms of student union amalgamations, in relation to the technological university issue, I'm ready to go. I also think there's an issue in terms of getting technological university status for institutions and getting them prepared for that. I think there's going to be major HEA battles and Department of Education battles and media battles. And again, I come from a university, but I think the technological university issue, or the technological university, is a very, very good idea, and it can only improve the economic outlook for this country. But we're still going to have Hugh Brady, the president of UCD, saying that it'll downgrade academic standards. I'm able to stand up on Vincent Browne or Pat Kenny and say, I'm actually one of your students, and I disagree with you wholeheartedly here. I think this is a great area to focus on, and I will do whatever it takes to help students out in that regard.
Okay. So that's a neat segue into the next topic, which is the impact that the Hunt report, and in particular amalgamations of students' unions, has on the internal cohesion of USI, which faces this will pose challenges for every president for the next couple of years and officer board. So how would you deal with that? We'll start with Kieran on this.
Sure. Well, I suppose looking at the main areas that are recognised would be research, teaching and the quality of teaching, and citizenship and that engagement. For years, universities across the world and institutes of technology, education providers have turned their back on society, have essentially erected walls around their campuses, and the benefit to society has only been through their research papers that they have produced, oftentimes. I want to ensure that the very positive elements of the report are implemented. They're the easy wins, the things that students can drive forward. And all the while, we need to keep our eye on the ball in terms of areas that we struggle most difficultly with, that we have most difficulty with, so that we can help to shape how those areas are implemented. And yes, some of that will be quite heavy-handed. There will be campaigns associated with that. Some of it will be lobbying, and some of it will be just engagement. Unfortunately, we have a history of poor flow of communication from the needs of particular students up to the senior levels of USI, which means that oftentimes our input is not necessarily as crystallised as it should be.
Okay, John?
Oh, I don't think that answered the question asked, but...
No, but let's stick with that topic for a moment, and then we'll zone back in on amalgamations in the next question, just the challenges posed by the Hunt report generally.
Well, I think it's huge. I mean, there is going to be major uproar, and there's going to be division in terms of the technological university issue. I don't think there's any secret about that. And I mean, I think we have to look. I mean, funding was the major issue that came out of the Hunt report. And we seriously do have to look at how the hell we're going to keep this ship afloat in very, very touchy waters. And I think what we have to do at the minute is get real. And that's where I come in majorly. I think that my policies are realistic in terms of the outcomes from the Hunt report. But I think funding and the technological university issue are the two main ones that come out of it.